Hey everybody, happy Friday to you. Good to see you guys again. Welcome to On the Ring Apron. I'm Steve.
I'm Kia.
And we welcome you guys back. I cannot believe it has already been 5 days since Wrestlemania officially came to an end. I don't know necessarily about all of you guys out there, but for me it seemed like it's been a lot longer this week. It seemed like it took a very long time. Having to deal with the fact that we didn't have the... having to deal with, all the travel plans, kind of didn't really hurt my feelings too much because today would have been our travel day back from Wrestlemania.
Oh, yeah.
So, not having to spend 6 hours in a car, I guess I can live with that part.
It's always fun going there, but not going back.
Tell me about it.
Let me rephrase it. It's fun going for me both ways because you're the one driving. So, yeah.
She sleeps.
Yeah.
This is how it works, okay?
Mm-hmm.
She sleeps. She promises she won't go to sleep, and then within 5 minutes she's asleep.
Hey, I love my sleep.
But, we've got past WrestleMania, and what a unique WrestleMania it was. We've given our very quick reactions, and now we've had a chance to see a week's worth of shows, Raw and NXT giving a chance to start things off, and then Smackdown going on tonight. So we'll have a quick chance to go over all of that and kind of give our thoughts. But now it's time to move past WrestleMania, and we're moving now ourselves towards Money in the Bank, which is actually one of our more fun pay-per-views because you never know where this one's going to lead. So many different possibilities and so many different opportunities for potentially either a huge name to potentially win a championship off the so-called unbeatable champion, or potentially a chance for you to build up a huge new name. So one of our favorites, it does appear like it's going to be at the Performance Center as everything's going to be for the foreseeable future. But, for the most part, hey, at least we're moving forward. We're still having pay-per-views, so, I can live with it.
Yeah, me too.
But let's take a quick second. Let's review what all we saw this week. First of all, hey to everybody that's out there.
Hello.
We want you guys, as always, giving us some good interaction, giving us some good feedback as to what we're talking about. There is going to be also a special segment right at the very end. We have a new feature that's getting ready to be brought as a part of our show. We introduced the plate exchange during WrestleMania, where, of course, I changed the title plates of our replica belts, as you see behind us every week. But also we're going to have another segment that we're going to be starting here pretty soon. More on that, so hang with us till the end so that way we can be able to go over it. So first we start with Monday Night Raw. It was no secret. It was pre-recorded this week.
Yeah.
So that kind of took a little bit of the fun out of it. But there were some big moments on it. The first one, right off the bat, the official Raw debut of NXT call-up Bianca Belair.
You mean the EST?
Well, hey, she goes here now. So, and a very successful debut, getting not only one match, but technically two matches, beating Zelina Vega and then being part of a six-person tag match, getting the team with her husband and the Street Profits as part of the match. You can tell they're getting ready to build up Bianca big to start things off.
Well, here's hoping. I'm hoping real hard.
Well, and I remember a lot of people getting mad because it didn't look like Bianca was going to get the push that they wanted when they had removed her out from the NXT title picture with Rhea and Charlotte. A lot of people thought she should have been involved in that WrestleMania match.
I was.
But you can tell bigger plans, and now we'll see what happens. Is what she does with her call-up is up to her. More on that in a little bit. We also, of course, as you see on the Raw After Mania, we not only get the NXT call-up, but we also get a return. This year, it was Nia Jax who makes her return in a big way.
I'm glad to have her back. I mean, it's been way too long. She's been missing way too long. I mean, honestly, let's see if she's healed up and, recovered and what she can do. I mean, I knew she was, big and she was running through everybody, before she left, and then the injury happened, and then, she left, and now she's back. So let's see if she's got ring rust.
Well, you wondered also with, the big names of Raw being removed out by Shayna Baszler in the Elimination Chamber, but then Shayna losing to Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, you wondered, okay, who's left for Becky to really kind of go up against because she's taken out everybody, including Shayna. And, of course, on the Raw After Mania, a lot of people wondering, is there potentially a Ronda Rousey return? It didn't happen. So now you've got a couple of new names, two powerhouses that definitely could outpower Becky, but maybe not necessarily have the experience. So we'll be curious to see if it's Nia or Bianca that ultimately ends up being the build towards Becky. And then, of course, Money in the Bank also in the way as well opens up so many possible doors.
I feel like, honestly, I'm glad Nia returned, and I'm glad Bianca came up from NXT. It's well-deserved. I believe she is due for a big push, like you said. I feel, in my opinion, who's the one that started all the stuff with Becky, honestly, the punch in the nose, which everybody just fed on about like wildfire, just went from place to place to place. Honestly, I feel like Nia could probably be the one to take her out. She's already punched her in the nose. What more can you ask for?
What ended up being one of the biggest mistakes of the last 18 months ended up being what ultimately propelled Becky Lynch to an entirely new level, and really made her into the man that we've come to know
and love.
The return of Nia, the build-up, and then, of course, as they wanted to kind of put out there, and it got the entire social media universe, in all kinds of tatters there for about 20 minutes, the shocking aftermath of what happened after Drew McIntyre defeated Brock Lesnar to win the WWE Championship. He goes to the back, he gets plates, very nice plates, can't wait to own them, plate exchange coming up when I do. But then he comes back out, does his interview, and ends up being goated into a championship match against the Big Show. And it got a lot of people on social media and their feelings because we had built up Drew McIntyre to be, to finally have slayed the beast and everything else. And then the potential possibility of him dropping the title 25 minutes after winning it against Brock Lesnar. I think it was the perfect ending for what was overall, outside of the Bianca setup at the beginning, honestly, a very middle-of-the-road Raw to me.
I feel like, honestly, with Big Show coming back and goading him into a match, I feel like that's only to promote, the movie that's coming out that he's in?
He's on a show, a Netflix show.
Okay. I feel like it was to promote the show, and, I hate saying that, but if you're going to come back and you're going to try to win a title, do not let it be because you're trying to promote a show. Let it be because you want to come back and legitimately win the title.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that they've put a championship on somebody strictly to just promote something else. They wanted Brock to be the face of Smackdown on Fox when he originally went over there. So the very first night they took the title off Kofi Kingston, a very popular champion, because the Fox executives wanted Brock. Obviously, it didn't pan out the way it was. Brock ended up on Raw. They moved the Fiend over to SmackDown, and the rest is history.
It worked out.
It worked out, I guess, the way you needed it to.
Yeah.
But of course, for those who didn't see it, I figure it's been 4 days since Raw. If you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, here it comes. It's time to zip ahead by about 30 seconds or mute your mic real quick. But Drew was able to retain the championship. Obviously, I think it would have made huge news, and obviously you would have seen a plate exchange here if there had been a title change. But obviously, that is not the case. Drew McIntyre definitely going to prove himself, at least for the time being, to be a fighting champion.
Yeah.
And so, let's see how this build goes, and kind of curious to see with Roman Reigns being out of the picture on SmackDown. A lot of people thought maybe you'd bring him back to Raw because him and Drew had such good chemistry. But you look at the rest of the Raw roster, most of them spent, half of them gone just because of the COVID-19 and the blocks of being able to fly. So honestly, with maybe the exception of Seth Rollins, I'm not really sure who else you can really put in the picture against him right now.
I don't know. I'd like to...
Kevin Owens, maybe?
Maybe. I honestly would like to see how long he can hold it. I would like to see him try to have people who come up against him and try to take it from him, but have him retain each and every time, only to prove not only is he's a fighting champion, but at the same time, prove that you can come at me as hard as you want to, but you better not miss if you do, if you want this title as bad as you say you do. So,
ever since we messed up that 1 week and we, and we dissed and didn't talk about Finn Balor, even though we were supposed to, now we have to sneak a Finn Balor references every week, so... but either way, Raw, with the exception, honestly, of Bianca's call-up and the Drew McIntyre part right at the very end, honestly, a very lackluster Raw. Granted, it was pre-recorded, so you didn't exactly have the full roster there. They're really starting to work on that going into next week, so we'll see if Raw improves. We moved to NXT, in my opinion, as it seems to be on a weekly basis. They set the standard for what the wrestling world is. In terms of WWE, 2 huge matches that took place.
Yep.
The first one, Io Shirai winning the number 1 contenders ladder match. So she will be the next person in line to get the new champion, Charlotte Flair.
I did like all the destruction and all the chaos that was happening around the ring, in the ring with that match, with those 5 or 6 women. Well, I'd say 5 or 6 only because you had people outside of the ring who was technically helping the women in the match.
Raquel Gonzalez definitely inserting herself into it. But you went into it, and with Bianca obviously being removed off of NXT now, no chance of her jumping in. No disrespect to the other women that are there, but really, Io Shirai was the only one in that match that you can go into a match with Charlotte Flair and say she's got a chance, at least a little bit.
A puncher's chance.
Right. Flyer's chance in her case.
Uh-huh.
But you wanna be able to see good competition, and now you're going to ultimately get Vince is going to get what he wants, which is, now having Charlotte down in NXT. Even though she says she's going to defend it on all 3 brands, I've got to believe that most of this is going to be spent defending it in NXT, and it's going to be the matter of which big up-and-comer is going to be the one to finally dethrone the Queen. But to be perfectly honest, I'm looking at most of the roster. She may be holding that title a while.
I don't know. Let's just wait and see, though.
A lot of names out there. And then, of course, the final hour completely devoted to one final beat, the fifth and final match between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, and it lived up to the hype.
My question is, who was everybody pulling for in that match? I was pulling for Gargano. What about you?
We did ask that match. I personally picked Ciampa going into it. We did actually have a poll on here, and I believe it was 70-30 in favor of Gargano, I believe, if I remember it correctly. I may be off on that. If I am, sorry. But ultimately, they put together a great match, exactly what you expected, maybe a little slow at times, but honestly, this was, the closest description I can have is, 2 brothers needing to go out back because they finally had enough of each other, and sometimes the easiest answer, other guys I know we can relate to this, sometimes the other answer is just go out back, beat the crap out of each other, and then, have some beers afterwards.
I'm not saying women do that. I think women hold grudges, and, we just hold it in, keep it going.
Mandy and Sonya.
We talk to you, we do. If we don't, we don't. Oh, well, whatever.
See, this Mandy Sonya stuff that you see on SmackDown, you never see this crap in with people like Gargano and Ciampa. They're going to sit there and they're going to go out back. They're going to handle it. And how ironic that amidst all the rivalries, 5 great matches, 5 fantastic contests between the 2 of them, it ultimately ends up being Candice who ends up being the one to truly lay the final blows that needed to be done to finally end this thing.
My thing is, I didn't see that coming, though. No, I didn't. You might have.
I've said a long time, married to one, behind every vindictive man is an even more vindictive woman. That's it, just, right here. Excellent. Oh boy, I hope I don't get copyright infringement for that. Sorry, Matt Groening, please don't sue me. Anyway, but it's Candice finally, even if it's nothing more than making sure her husband wins the match. At the same time, it's just she's done with this, and
enough is enough at this point.
At some point, it's like, all right, the 2 of you have done this long enough. If the 2 of you won't end it, fine, I'll end it.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
And doing what she needed to do, making sure her husband's the one that ultimately picks up the win. But at the same time, doing what needs to be done to end this. Of course, right at the end of NXT, of course, everybody on social media making it a big deal. The 2 figures inside of the car that were very clearly watching Gargano and Candice leaving in their car afterwards. A lot of speculation as to who that is. I have my thoughts as to who it is. Most people agree on social media. But again, we're not dirt sheets. We're not going to spoil anything. We'll have to see if we were right on that. But it appears that this Gargano-Ciampa story truly is finished. And I enjoyed every bit of it.
I did too. Again, when we first started watching, I really couldn't root for either one of them. But then as time went on and we kept going to NXT matches, didn't matter if it was here in Georgia, North Carolina, it didn't matter where it was. The more we kept going, I kind of started getting into it. I started feeling what they were about, kind of feeling them out, and just saying, oh, okay, maybe they might have something coming up big. Maybe they might be able to stick around and do what they need to do to get me to like them.
And that's once again just hats off to folks like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, all the people that are running these storylines and these the character development
Let's not forget William Regal.
Of course. Because this is exactly what it is. You had Ciampa and you had Gargano. They originally came up in Cruiserweight Classic, which was years ago, and while neither one of them won the tournament, it's exactly right. They came in as 2 very widely known people in the independent circuit,
yeah.
But not so much gonna get the immediate push right here because they were both small. They both were relatively unknown and new, wet behind the ears, and they have built themselves up to these huge names. So whether they continue their storylines in NXT or whether one of them moves on to either Raw or SmackDown, it's clear they both are going to be names that are going to be sitting around for a while. Mm-hmm. So then we move to SmackDown. A lot of stuff happening tonight. First of all, they did announce towards the end of the show, that we're going to go ahead and start qualifying for Money in the Bank. We showed the briefcase already. We only get one chance a year to show off these things, so we're going to hang them up. We're going to put something above our head or something where I can show these off when possible. But 2 qualifying matches set up for next week. They're going to have Daniel Bryan facing Cesaro for 1 spot in the men's match, and then next week Dana Brooke and Naomi will be getting a match, to put get the first spot in the women's match.
But here's the thing with both matches, I love all 4 people. I mean,
I love one a little more than the other 3, but enough of that. Y'all know who I'm talking about.
But I mean, I love all 4 people. I feel like Dana Brooke and Naomi would be a good head-to-head, only because I feel like outside of Charlotte and the rest of the women, I feel like they're superior. I feel like they're athletic. I feel like these 2 women, it's pretty much who's the strongest, who's the best, despite Bianca not being in the match at this present moment. But between those 2, I honestly like both, so I don't know who I'd pick for, who I'd root for in that match. So.
And typically, you'd end up getting, if it's like it's going to be in most years, you typically have, 4 from Raw, 4 from SmackDown. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've maybe, put someone in from NXT who maybe could potentially get a shot. I mean, they did it for Mania this year, so certainly possible they could have an NXT person win, Money in the Bank. Maybe she cashes in on Charlotte. Maybe that's how they get the title off of her. It wouldn't be the first time she's been cashed in on.
Same thing with...
2 years ago today, by the way.
Same thing with Daniel Bryan and Cesaro. Who do you pull for? They're both good. They're both... It just... In the end, whoever wins the match, it'll be a good match, in my opinion.
Right, and you hate it because of the fact that if it goes the way you're looking at it, that means not only do 2 people get in, but it also means 2 people you really like are not going to get in unless, they have a second chance or something. But getting that set up, Bayley, of course, at WrestleMania, retaining her SmackDown Women's Championship in her Fatal 5-Way elimination.
And looking badass in her white suit. Not many people can pull off a white suit, but I think she did well.
A lot of people wore white at Mania this year. We're not the red carpet by any means. Lord knows I'm not.
But here's my thing. Seth started it a while back when he wore his white for one of his Manias.
Pretty sure Shawn Michaels wore it a long time before that.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Shawn Michaels, Seth Rollins.
Look, I'm going to try to be the history book here, but, it's a matter of, how it worked out. But Bayley winning, and then tonight, trying to once again starting to set the seeds for her eventual rivalry with Sasha Banks by throwing her under the bus in a match next week against the powerhouse Tamina.
By the way, I say it every time we have a show, Sasha is slaying the hair, the makeup, and the clothes. I don't know how many more ways I can say it. She just looks legit good.
If the boss is getting paid, the boss is going to have to look the part, and she does every single week.
Yep.
But it'll be curious to see, more than likely, Tamina will go over in that match next week to set up her matchup with Bayley, unless there's some funny business outside, but we'll see how that turns out. And then, of course, the new Universal Champion showing himself tonight, Braun Strowman defeating Goldberg for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania and getting his first match as champion, defeating Shinsuke Nakamura tonight, despite some outside interference from Cesaro, but ultimately setting up for his next rivalry, likely at Money in the Bank. It looks like he's facing The Fiend.
What can I say about that?
Family affair. Yeah. It was former family.
Yeah, they both think alike, so this will be a very good matchup. I feel like mentally and physically they know each other so well. So how do you walk away from a match? Who is going to win? Who is going to lose? Who are you pulling for?
Well, I mean, we've got weeks to dissect this, obviously, so we've got some time to be able to figure it out. But just initial thoughts. I mean, The Fiend losing to a guy who was, of all people, just a powerhouse in Goldberg. So we know that The Fiend can fall to a person who has an immense amount of power, but also has been proven in the past that Bray has the ability most definitely to get inside of people's heads, and definitely a person whose head he's been in before is Braun's.
Yeah, so, I mean, only thing we do is, week by week dissect and then watch the match and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. And I'd be remiss if I didn't notate, that The Fiend losing the championship to Goldberg, and then the potential possibility that on May 10th he could win it back, while noting that on WWE Shop on May 1st is when his replica Fiend Championship is supposed to become available for sale through the shop. It's been available for pre-order for a couple months now, so curious to see if the timing of that isn't a little more than just coincidence, that they could potentially have The Fiend get back his championship at the same time.
Who knows? Wait and see.
But, SmackDown, putting on a good show. I would have ranked it second this week. I still think NXT put on a slightly better show.
Yeah.
Raw...
Just dead last.
Well, Raw's got to step up. Right now, the Monday Night Messiah's plan of making Raw a legitimate show again is not going well.
He can't carry the whole show on his shoulders. I mean, he can,
right
but
now he can't even carry a single match on his own. But, I have a feeling he's up to something. But we'll see. He lost to Owens twice.
Okay, anyway, moving on.
Two Carmella references tonight. Come on, I love it. My girl's back, I'm thrilled. And as I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago today in New Orleans was when Carmella cashed in this very well Money in the Bank. You can hold that one. Is when she cashed in that Money in the Bank on Charlotte to win the Women's Championship. So a little history. We were there.
Yep.
Check out the YouTube channel on the Ring Apron. It's on there under the Smackdown and 205 Live that we had back at WrestleMania 34. We've had an opportunity to kind of discuss, what happened this week, but something I really kind of want to touch up on, and something that happened tonight on SmackDown. We talked about Bianca's call-up on Raw. A call-up tonight that was done on SmackDown, kind of a little bit under the radar, was the Forgotten Sons from NXT getting called up. And it kind of leads into our discussion tonight, and a couple of people wanted to know about this, was what our feelings were on people getting called up from the NXT developmental up to either Raw or SmackDown right after WrestleMania. I could see this from two different perspectives, and, if you'll indulge me for a moment, you've seen, obviously, call-ups for years now from NXT, most of them, obviously, in front of a crowd, so, the Forgotten Sons and Bianca, bless them, didn't get the, the...
call-up that they should have gotten.
Well, they didn't get the reception they wanted to get, and I can't imagine that the Forgotten Sons were going to get a huge one anyway. But, I've seen, debuts from folks that were in NXT that, were huge over in NXT that all of a sudden got to the main roster and just fizzled, and, a perfect example of a guy who was huge in NXT but didn't, pan out was Shawn Spears, known to WWE as Ty Dillinger. He was the perfect 10. Didn't matter if he was winning championships, losing matches, winning matches, didn't matter. He was over as ever on the main roster, or in NXT, but then he gets to the main roster, has a small push for maybe the first month or so, and then just completely died out.
Another one, Adam Rose.
Oh, good Lord, yes. Adam Rose, another popular guy, very, had a couple of different runs down in NXT with a number of different characters, got up and was popular for a little bit, but then he kind of fizzled out as well. But then on the flip side of that same coin, you see folks that, either weren't very successful in NXT or were running a different persona, in NXT, and then they get called up to the main roster, and all of a sudden it just clicks in front of a different crowd. Two names to bring up very easily because their NXT and their main roster personas are so different were Buddy Murphy and Alexa Bliss. Down in NXT, very popular tag team along with Wesley Blake, one of the members of the Forgotten Sons. So you see how far behind Blake was in following his counterparts. But then Murphy and Bliss both come up to the main roster, going in singles directions. I think people may be a little bit more worried about Bliss than they were about Murphy, and yet the two of them have found great success on the main roster.
Yeah, let's see, how many times has Alexa won the different women's titles, and she's holding the tag now, 2 times.
Exactly. I mean, she's just like, just like Sasha, she's sitting 1 title away from the Grand Slam. Bayley right now still the only person to hold that distinction, but she, has been very successful since coming up as a singles competitor, despite her small frame and everything else, which I think was what a lot of people were worried about. And then in the case of the Forgotten Sons, and more primarily Wesley Blake in this particular instance, sometimes you go down and you go into developmental and you try a persona, it doesn't work. You go back to the drawing board, you try again, you try another one, it doesn't work. But hopefully you're thinking that after 3 or 4, one of them will click. Wesley Blake being a perfect example here. I could also probably bring up someone like No Way Jose.
Oh, yeah.
Who, at some point, you've developmental has put in as much time as they can with you. And at that point, it happened to No Way Jose, and it's happening, I think, now to Wesley Blake as well as the rest of the Forgotten Sons. They basically are saying, we've done all we can with you. We've got too many names sitting behind you. We've got too many people that have bided their time and waited their turn. And at this point, we're putting you on Raw or SmackDown, and
if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Exactly. You got to make it stick now, because we really don't have the time, and there are too many other people waiting for their turn for us to spend any more time. We've given you years. At this point, it's sink or swim, and I feel like for the Forgotten Sons, this is kind of going to be a situation like that.
Swim? Yeah.
Because as you can see with like No Way Jose, it's definitely sank. Sank, and he's now sunk.
Well, the reason I feel like that sunk is because he tried to do the whole Adam Rose thing. You can't sit here and copy someone who's already had the idea and think it's going to work with you. If it didn't work for him, it's not going to work for you. And that's just my take on it.
That could very well work. Two names that were, and again, sometimes, as I said, what works in NXT for some don't work well for others, or vice versa. Two people that were kind of middle of the road in NXT were Big E and Xavier Woods, and then both of them came up, changed everything, changed what they were, ended up eventually stepping up. Big E, of course, having his run with Dolph Ziggler, AJ Lee for a little while, but eventually all of them fusing up to the New Day, and 5 years later, it's still working.
True. I never thought it would.
We'll be up front with you. We didn't think the New Day had a chance of working,
did.
and my brother certainly did.
Yep.
And then years later, they're easily some of the most popular folks over.
Yeah.
But then you look at a guy like Baron Corbin, NXT. I mean, mad powerhouse. Didn't work by the hour. Came in, took folks out as quickly as possible. I remember the NXT Universe counting the number of seconds it would take, and most of the time they wouldn't even get into the 20s or 30s before the match was already over. And then he comes up to WWE, gets the huge push by winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. But then it's kind of been
silent.
What do you want to do with him here? They've given him some token wins. Of course, he won Money in the Bank, didn't successfully cash in. So, call-ups, it's, you're excited about some, you're not excited about others, but very few, there have only been a handful, and you could probably count them on one hand, of people who have had success at both the main roster as well as NXT during their call-ups, and the names that come to mind easily, you could say all 3 Shield members, all 4 of the Horsewomen, and then I'd argue maybe Finn Balor. Very successful at both the NXT level as well as the main roster, and I'd even argue the Shield members, with maybe Seth Rollins being the lone exception. Even Roman and Dean were not huge names in NXT. It was when they finally joined up and became a really good team. They gave them a good story, and I think that's the key.
They were an unsuspected team, too. I sat here and again think, oh, it's not going to work. They're just like New Day. It ain't going to work. Well, it worked.
It worked, and they all got over big, and as a result, even though Dean's not here anymore, he's been able to prove that he can be successful, at other levels as well. So, by all means, we're not shitting on any of the other brands here. Wrestling is wrestling. We're all fans here. But at the end of the day, you want to see everybody have a chance to be successful. So I do think you can't really judge it on just a single night. You're excited about some of them being there, but it's a long road. And I really have said before that the first story you're given, the first main roster storyline you're given, really helps set the tone. If you're given a great story and a great entrance in, you can go over with a crowd real easily, whether that's as a face or as a heel. But if you get put into a storyline that's boring as mess, and it doesn't work and you fizzle, it can end everything before you even get started.
Well, I don't know what to really say about that, but moving on.
But I'm curious to get your thoughts on the matter. We want to make sure we're taking the time to get your thoughts on the matter. We may not be done with call-ups necessarily yet. I think really you've got to try to, use the roster that you have. So we may see some other folks that are down in NXT maybe get a chance to come up, and see what they can do. So besides Bianca on Raw and the Forgotten Sons on SmackDown, are there any other names in NXT that you think are ready, that you're ready for a chance to see what they could do on Raw, to see what they could do on SmackDown? Is there anyone that you see from Raw or SmackDown that you feel could benefit from going to NXT, maybe going back to a smaller crowd, back to a smaller venue, and seeing what potentially they could do? What are your thoughts? Who do you guys think? Kia, anybody ring the bell right off the top of your head?
I honestly would like to see, of course I want to see Mia Yim come up. I believe her and Keith Lee would do good up here. I honestly feel like Keith Lee has already gotten the push. He's successful down there. You saw how he was successful up here with the different pay-per-views and the different matches. I feel like he could be ready to come up. I honestly want to see Tyler Breeze come back. I feel like it doesn't matter where you put him, he can be successful. He pretty much makes his own success wherever he goes. I would like to see Io come up, like you said. I want to see her. I mean, even if she holds the NXT, she beat Charlotte, she holds the NXT women's title. I like to see her hold that, and then pretty much pull an Asuka and come up with the title and just, kind of keep going back and forth until she feels like she's ready to drop the title.
Right. And as I said, we want to get your guys' names. We're seeing Mia and Io also in the comments down below. So we appreciate the feedback. But by all means, take the time. This is something that we're going to see over the next couple of weeks as we start building away from WrestleMania 36, starting to work our way under a year now to 37. But
Yep.
first stop is Money in the Bank here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
So we saw a good week. It's time to start building up these new storylines. But we want to make sure we're giving you guys great content, and we're continuing to still give you guys a lot of good things to talk about. And we want to get your fan interaction. And with that in mind, as we said earlier, we're opening up a new segment that we're going to start on a weekly basis. It really involves Kia more than me. So, Kia, I'm going to let you take the wheel here, and we're going to introduce a new segment of our show that hopefully you guys will be able to interact with us and give us your feedback. So
as y'all all know, I put out a Instagram/Facebook post in both stories because I wanted to do my own segment, Questions with the Queen. The questions can be anything wrestling related, like how did I get into it? Who's my favorite wrestler? Why am I so into it? Do I like cosplay? Do I not like it? Questions of that nature. And I know I posted it just kind of thinking, okay, well, maybe it's not going to have a good following, but people have gotten behind it. I've gotten like a bunch of questions. And so what I would like to do every Saturday, minus pay-per-views, that is I want to, every Saturday at 2, I want to do a live show, and I just want to answer all the questions with my answers. So if you're down for that, let's see how the first one goes tomorrow at 2, and we'll kind of go from there. If it's a success, we'll keep it going. If it isn't really that successful, I'll give it probably a week online where I'm just kind of answering the questions and the stories, and we'll just kind of go from there. But I know I've gotten a lot of questions from Slithering Queen. I got a lot of questions from Charles Landon, Alicia Stewart, and so forth and so on. But with that being said, I kind of hope y'all tune in tomorrow at 2, and let's just see how it goes, all right?
And just to make sure we're clear, it's 2 o'clock Eastern, so that would be 11 o'clock on the West Coast. If anybody's getting up early, a West Coaster, anybody getting up early, that's 8 o'clock Hawaiian. So if we got any Samoans or Hawaiians out there, feel free to join us. But we appreciate all of the support you guys have gave us through WrestleMania weekend. We put out a ton of content to the point where you guys probably got sick of seeing us seemingly every other day. But hey, that's the nature of WrestleMania, and the one regret we have, of course, is the same that everyone else had, and that is we didn't get a chance to do it live from Tampa. But we move on. We still enjoyed the show, and we are appreciative to WWE for still putting on a WrestleMania that weekend. They didn't completely abandon TakeOver either. They still managed to get those matches in there. And, of course, one match that they were building towards that ultimately they're going to move to the UK pay-per-view. Of course, Finn Balor and Walter looks like they're lining themselves up for the UK title. And that's something else that also I wanted to bring out there as well. We talk, of course, every week about Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Do you guys want us to start taking UK into account? Because it's not filmed here in America. It gets a little bit trickier because it is a show that comes on in the middle of the afternoon on a Thursday. But is that something you'd like to see us start giving a little more feature to, other than just whatever the main story is, and if it involves one of our NXT folks? So by all means, if we get enough push for it, we'll start adding NXT UK into our shows as well. But that's the time we've got for tonight. We appreciate everyone who came out and and watched our show this evening, as you guys do every week. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to continue to keep doing this. We have a ton of fun doing it. So many different conversations, and frankly, 25 to 30 minutes every Friday is simply just not enough for everything we want to talk about, and that's why we want your feedback. Keep telling us, what do you want us talking about? What topics do you want us to hit on? What is something you see that you're liking? What is something you want to hear our opinion on? and everything else.
I love talking to different people. I love talking to you guys and girls throughout the week here on Instagram and Facebook, and I like getting your feedback. I like hearing what you have to say. A lot of it, does get incorporated into our shows. Everything that I can remember gets incorporated, and with that being said, I want y'all to continue to be able to talk to us and tell us what you want to see, what you think could help us improve, and so forth and so on.
That's something that you've seen, hopefully, or anybody who has interacted with us. I mean, we very clearly, we answer messages. If you guys send us messages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter. We answer.
Yep.
So if you want to know about us, or want to know something that we can talk about, or just want to get to know us better while we're, everybody's still in quarantine, get to know us because, hey, this isn't going to last forever, and at some point, we're all going to be out there back at live shows again. And when that happens, we're intended on going hard into it. But we wanted to make sure, that you guys check us out tomorrow, again, live here on Instagram at 2 o'clock Eastern Time for Questions with the Queen. I think she wants to add something.
By the way, I'm glad Sheamus came back. I forgot about my Sheamus.
The only person on the planet who's lighter skinned than I am. I'm as white as a piece of paper. But either way. We'll see what they're ready to do with him. Of course, beating a jobber tonight. They're gonna have to slowly build him back up. And where does he fall in?
I feel like he could be successful like Becky and Finn, honestly. But that's just my opinion.
New stable, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, thank you guys for joining us again. See us tomorrow at 2 o'clock for Questions with the Queen. Kia's going to answer your questions. So if you got questions you want to know, and it doesn't even necessarily have to stay in the wrestling realm, as long as it stays respectful, don't be asking her stuff like that, because I'm still going to be on the other side of the camera. But either way, what do you want to hear from her? What questions do you want her to answer? This is going to be, Kia's time to shine.
Nope, I'm Sheamus White. I would say that she would be lying about that, but she's not.
Goodness gracious. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us again tonight. Join us every Friday, 10:15 for On the Ring Apron. You've seen some of our shows. Go back and, check out YouTube to see our previous shows from WrestleMania, see our reactions, see our preview show. Check out my new segment, The Plate Exchange. We've had 2 of them through WrestleMania weekend with hopefully more to come. But anyway, you guys have a good night. Continue to be safe out there. Stay in your house. Okay?
Wash your hands.
We've got stuff to do. We got shows we want to go to this summer, okay? Atlanta lost a Raw a couple of weeks ago because of all of this, stuff going on. I don't want to lose anymore. I'm ready to start going back to shows. Stay in your house. Let's get this behind us so that way we can see things. We do see some questions coming in. We're at the end of our show, so we're out of time, but these questions are going to get added into Questions with the Queen tomorrow. Another reason to check us out at 2, because we'll go ahead and jump in on those.
And to answer the question right quick, no, but now I've got something to look at tonight.
There you go. But anyway, y'all have a great night. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands, wear your mask, everything else, and we'll see you guys later on. We'll see you tomorrow. Y'all have a good night.
All right, bye, guys.